Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own Money Whisperer, Judy Copenbarger. How are you, Judy?
I am doing great. Happy Tuesday to you. You doing well?
I'm doing fantastic. I always look forward to our show. I am very excited though about today's show because it's a continuation of last week's show. So, folks, if you didn't get a chance to catch last week's episode, make sure you do so because we did talk about the future of our kids, and I won't say any more than that because we're going to cover a little bit more today. If you're joining us for the very first time, thank you for joining us. If you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. We're going to talk about our website. There's a lot of great content on there as well too. So make sure that you are following Judy. All of our social media platforms are there as well too. And I feel like I'm going 100 miles an hour and I haven't even had coffee yet.
Let's go.
Oh yeah, let's do this. Okay, so let's do a little recap. So we've been talking a lot about our future, how we're going to handle things. And I think with back to school last week, one of the topics that we definitely covered was, as kids become seniors, as they're getting ready to leave the nest, we don't know the three options that I want you to share, those three roads that we kind of talked about last week. And then we're going to focus on some different questions today. But take us through some of the process. What are some great things that we should be looking at or preparing for our current seniors, those that are just off to college or any other road that they're on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, a lot of people are thinking about that this time of year, back to school. Maybe you just dropped off, a child at college, or they're thinking about where will I go? A year from now, I'm going to be somewhere. Where will that be? And as a parent for us, we've raised 5 children and they went through this whole process of education and all that. But it was really about preparation. Part of our role, part of our responsibility as a parent, I think, is to prepare our children for the next stage, whether they're walking, whether they're entering school, whether they're beginning to play sports and music and like get out into the world and be on teams and things like that, getting them ready academically if they're going to go on to future education, further education. It's about preparation. And really, if you're talking about a senior or, one of these adulting, age groups, you're really preparing them for like one of three ways they can go, the way I see it. So when they get out of high school, they're going to go live in one of three places, either a military barrack somewhere, or a dorm room somewhere, or in their own place, an apartment. And all three of those, I think, require preparation. If we want to really set them up for success, there are things that we can do to make sure that they're successful when they get where they're going, whichever track it is.
All right. So let's talk about those three areas, right?
Mhm.
As a parent, and I have to share with you also that some of the comments that I heard from last week's show was, "Where was Judy when I was growing up?" You know what I mean? Because as a lot of folks, our parents, we kind of learn a lot from them. What we didn't learn or what we did learn was from them. And
Mhm.
I hate to say this, but a lot of them weren't very well educated in how to take us to the next level as we're growing. So I think for us, in our generation, I think it's our duty to make sure that our kids do a lot better than what we did also as well. So let's take those three paths that you talk about. So I had my kid ready to graduate high school. Even before high school, you mentioned also that there's some things that we should be looking at, we should be putting into place before graduation comes, and all of a sudden they're out and about, and most of them don't really even know how to even get started in life. So walk us through best practices, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. Well, in my experience in working with hundreds, thousands now over the years, families, preparation really is kind of the theme around this. How do we set them up to really have a good financial future, a good quality of life future, relationships that are healthy, lifestyles that work for them? How do we help them do that? So I think the first universal thing, well, there's several, but the first one is these days, young people have things we didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
We have a whole different background, a whole different way of keeping records. And you got to talk about social media. Every party you go to, every bad word that you say that somebody's got a cell phone out for, every place you were that maybe you don't want everybody to know you were there, all that stuff. A lot of stuff that we did, there's no record of.
You got it, right? Yep.
Going to that party or that, whatever. There's records of it now. And so whether it's military, whether it's trade school, university, getting a job, your first job and starting to work up the ranks, it's really important, I think, as parents to look over the social media of your child, talk to them about the record, that a permanent record of everything they're doing and saying that's on there, what they're putting out about themselves as well. But other people have records of them. And there are people that will help you even clean those up to get ready for athletes. If they're going to go to a college, there are things that their social media probably shouldn't have if they're going to represent a school. And it could be part of the decision making for an important hiring position or for an important recruitment, of someone, trying to decide if you're really a good candidate for their school. So I think social media really needs to be looked at. And as a parent, you can talk to your kids about watch it. If you're in high school now, watch what's on there, and then kind of clean it up as you go. I think that's an important kind of universal thing, no matter what we're doing. Another thing is to prepare our children financially, not like make sure they have a lot of money, so they can live in a big house on top of the hill, although that's okay, but to help them learn how to spend well. Because most people, if you ask them, you say, well, why haven't you saved as much as you want? They'll tell you, I wish I'd done more. I wish I had more. I wish I'd started earlier or saved more often or put a little bit more away over time. And if you don't know better, you can't do better. So we can help our children learn, even when they're little, always tuck some away. And when you get your first job, see what the benefits are. They're not thinking retirement. They're not thinking health insurance. They're just thinking, I got a paycheck. So help them learn about the sustainability and the helpfulness of starting some of these benefits early, like a 401k, participating in those Roth IRAs and things like that they can do early. And just the mindset. And if you didn't do it well, teach those lessons as well. Here's some things I made a mistake and I wish I would have done it this way. Here's some wisdom I can share with you. So maybe you can make a better decision than I did. One of the things that we did, this kind of just brought up a mistake that we had to confess to our children. We started off when we first got married, we didn't have kids yet. And so we were putting a quarter of our income away, in the work programs. And it turned out to be a lot of money. And then we rated that when we bought our first home. Why? By the time we paid all the taxes and all the penalties for taking it out early, we didn't hardly get any benefit of that. And what that would have been worth now, 30 years later, are you kidding me? It was a mistake because we were just a little bit, excited about getting into our first place, having our first baby and all of that. But we could have easily waited another 6, 7, 8 months, maybe a year at the worst case. And we would have had everything that we had plus, that retirement, which now would have been a lot of money. So that was something that I wish someone had taught me. When you put it away like that, when you pay yourself first, it's treat it like a payment. You can't spend it again. It's gone until a future date when you pull it out. It's not a savings account. It's a future account. So things like that, we can help our kids, prepare financially, help them save, take advantage of benefits and things like that. And then there's the big question, if they're going off to college, how are we going to fund that? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a lot of parents, that's the scary part, right? Because a lot of families are kind of just living paycheck to paycheck, and they're not thinking about the future. Like you just said, if you're not preparing ahead of time, I wish I would have known then what I know now, because things would be a lot different, So let's talk a little bit about college. Let's talk about some of the I like to call it like the sea of sharks when a kid walks into the college campus for the very first time, right? And there's also things that parents need to be aware. I know we're going to talk about this also in detail. Is FAFSA, right? Basically for the kids as well. Some do's and don'ts and some things that you can share with folks. You've obviously have gone through this with all of your kids, so it's also a great way for us to learn, the do's and don'ts, and also, like, again, talk about the sea of sharks in colleges when you first walk on campus.
Oh, well, let's talk about those sharks first. Boy, you get all these, young adults finally got some freedom, finally out from under mom and dad, and they have their own place and they can pick their own friends and new activities and classes and they're learning and they're just taking the world by the tail. And then they go out across the quad and all those tables are set up with all the banners and all the little table skirts and all that. And there are all kinds of predators just waiting to sign them up for all these credit cards, right? Get credit. You're an adult now. You need credit with us, right? With it, because they know what's going to happen. They're going to run up the credit cards, pay all that interest. Mom and dad will bail them out, and then they'll probably do it again. And that's a lot of money for these companies. So they know it's a target-rich environment. And they're there, every fall and every spring to make sure everybody signs up. Get a free candy bar, get a free beach towel, sunglasses, whatever. Just sign up with our bank. And so these young people do it not knowing. And then all of a sudden they have all this free money and they run up those credit cards, 29.99% interest. Really? How is that not usury? I don't know. So that's a thing. So you can prepare your children before they have that experience. Here's the healthy way to use credit, because they should have some established by that age, I think. And here's how we use it as a tool. And here's how it can really kind of bite you the other way. Just like a hammer. You give a hammer to a 6-year-old, they're going to build you a beautiful birdhouse, or they're going to break something important. So it's just a tool, right? But you can prepare them. And I think, one thing that we did well, we had good counsel. We always tried to have friends with kids a little older than us that were turning out good. So as babies, we were hanging around the toddler parents. When we had toddlers, we hung around the school age parents, to try to see, what's working well and learn from them. And so one of these bits of wisdom that we had before our kids were teenagers was start that credit early, have them establish it by 18. And so there are credit cards that you can get. It's hard to get the first one because they want you to have a credit history to get credit to establish credit history. Right. So, but places like consumer, like Kohl's, Target, places like that might be easier than some of the bigger banks to start. Or they have programs at a lot of the major banks where you just have a debit card on mom and dad's account. The child gets their own card with their name, and it's like a $500 line, maybe $300 line. And then once they show responsibility by paying off in time, then they'll expand it to $1,000, and then they'll offer them their own like a year later. So you can do that when they're 15, 16. Then by 18, they know how to responsibly use the cards. And they're not going to go get in trouble. Maybe they'll teach everybody else in the dorm how to do it right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But one thing parents say, oh, now you have a credit card, don't use it. But really you want to, because you can't establish credit without having a spending history, like a payment history. So a recommendation that I would give is, get this credit card, talk about it, have a little, powwow about how it works and how it can help and what it costs if you don't use it right. And then have them charge, $50, $80, maybe go to dinner and put it on their bill and show them how to pay every month or set it up so it's automatic, even better. So they're paying $15 or $20 a month until it's paid off 3, 4, 5 months, and then do it again. Now we're going to have a year and a half history, maybe while they're still in high school, of showing that they paid on time. And other credit cards will say, yeah, that's good. And it's going to help them. When they go buy a car, they'll get a decent interest rate. Or when they go to get their first apartment, they'll actually have credit and you won't have to co-sign for them. So that's something that you can do, whether your kids are headed off for college or launching, a new job or whatever they're doing, military. That's wisdom that I think will help them.
Awesome. So I have a follow-up question with that too. So I've heard also that when you get your kids a credit card under your name, so if they're, 15, 16, like you're talking about, do you normally get the credit card using their social security number? Does it go on their credit with that? Or do you just get it under the name as an extra card for them as well?
Yeah, it's a good thing. It does go on their own social security number, their own record. And so they're starting to establish credit at that point, as soon as they show that they have a balance and that they're paying it off. So yeah, that's good.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's move on, folks. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. If you're not following Judy, do so at judycopenbarger.com, which actually leads me to a great segue. Let's talk about your website, some of the resources available for folks on your website.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. So at judycopenbarger.com, we've got some helpful articles on everything finance, personal finance, small business, small ministry finance, all kinds of things that will help you there. And they're all 3 to 5 minutes. There's articles, videos. You can also access the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program through that judycopenbarger.com site. It's probably the easiest way to get there. Little green button, it takes you right there. And on the Money, Truth, and Life website, or sorry, the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program, what you're going to find is a whole course set up with 5 pillars of finance. Everything about estate planning, everything about taxes, income tax and estate tax and gift tax and capital gains and all of that. Everything you need to know as a regular person or a small business owner. The bears and the bulls and stocks and 401ks and 403bs and what's the difference anyway? Should I have an IRA? Should I have a Roth IRA? Are they really the same? Are they really different? Well, that's how you can find out. And what would be better for you and why? So it's a primer level all the way through graduate school of all of these concepts that can really help you navigate your financial future way better, for all the things that you have in store for yourself and for your family. It'll help you get there. And most importantly, it will help you know enough to know what you need to know. It'll give you enough information to know what questions you should even ask. Because a lot of people say, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what I don't know, right? So once you start to learn what you didn't know, now you know, and you know how to move forward. So that's all there to help you. It's free. Go sign up, take a class, take a whole course if you want to, and see what you can do to get your family's financial future just on track.
Awesome. And folks, again, if you're just joining us now, watch the beginning of the show, and I encourage you guys to also watch last week's episode as well too. There's a lot of great content and information that can help your family, your kids, especially those that are getting ready to graduate or those that just left the nest to go on to bigger and better things. When you mentioned it, I always remember growing up, that freedom that you were talking about. It's just, I always remember, as long as you're under my roof, man, you'll follow my rules, right? That just kind of like brings that up to memory. So I want to get back also into talking about those first steps when you leave your house, when you're getting ready to go to college. We talked. I mentioned the word FAFSA, and that's an application that kids can apply for. Talk a little bit about that, and actually even better, talk about how do we prepare our kids to make sure that they, obviously go through the application process, but make sure that they have the right information, take advantage of the right opportunity for these programs.
Yeah. So even if you think there might not be money that you can get through a grant system or a scholarship system or a subsidized loans, all of these benefits that might help pay for college for a child or a grandchild, apply anyway, because sometimes just applying opens up a window. And if there's money that's available, if you have eligibility because you filled out the FAFSA application, then you can be part of that pool. If you're not even in the system, you're not going to get any money. And that surprises people sometimes. It's like there'll be a sudden grant or an overage, and they're like, oh, well, if you applied for FAFSA, here's extra money, and everybody gets some. And you just say, click, yes, I'd like to receive that. So it doesn't hurt to do it, even if you think maybe, my parents make too much or we make too much. There's no way we're going to get something. There might be programs that come up, and, it's in the news a lot right now where things are changing. So we don't know what might be available. So I say, even if you think you don't need it or don't want it or can't get it, fill it out. So the FAFSA form, it's all done online. You just click, 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 click. And what they're looking for is the government kind of eligibility screening mechanism for college tuition help. And so they're just looking for, well, how much do you make? How much do your parents make? Should they participate? If they're loaded, maybe they should participate in your tuition, and it shouldn't be all on the government to help you. What really is helpful to know, and we learned, too late for the first couple of kids, but we figured it out later, is the sooner your children become independent, the sooner they're going to have a favorability. Is that a word? One of my degrees is in English, so I think I can make up one once in a while. I got the credential for that. But I think they're going to have favor when it comes to grants if they need the money, right? It's based on need. And so if your child is already working, they have a little job, maybe they're working in the summer or something after school, or you have a family business they can work in. If they have their own tax return and their own independent income, chances are it's less than mom and dad's. And so if they go in as an independent applicant, rather than I'm a dependent, and so let's look at only my parents' money, Now you're looking at, a poor starving student, probably, they make maybe less than 10, 20,000, whatever it is. They're going to have the front of the line benefits as opposed to someone who's a dependent living in a house with, 6-figure incomes. So that's something that you can think about when you're, preparing, helping your child prepare. Should they maybe get a job and do something, maybe not full time, when they're going to high school, but something that they can do to earn income and become independent the year before, at least the year before they apply or plan to apply for FAFSA, which happens in the spring, by the way. It's due by March. And sometimes they'll string it out a little bit later to June, but really it's something that if you've got a senior this year, by January, you want to be pulling your numbers together and getting ready to go through that application process. January, February, and done by first part of March.
And that's great advice. I would have never thought to get the kids working that soon and becoming independent, because you never really think about it. Most parents will tell you, I don't want my kid working. I want them to focus on school and school and school and school until you get to that point where time to apply for college. And yeah, you get all these dings because you're trying to do the right thing, but you know what I mean? Also not really knowing, how to do it for sure.
It could be helpful. Absolutely.
So Judy, I'm gonna go back to a question that I've always asked you because it keeps coming up, because new listeners, new viewers always ask is, why do you do what you do?
I love what I do. I love being in the front row, helping people discover what they can do, get the mindset right, be pulling together as a team, family harmony, marital harmony around money, getting rid of the shame and the stress and the blame and all that negative stuff that is in a lot of households with at least one spouse about money. And getting them rowing together and achieving goals and having clarity around where they want to go. I remember years ago, I had a couple of clients. It was when I first started working with the financial roadmap experience that I've done now for a decade or so. And it was, probably within the first few years of doing that. And this couple sat down, and one of their goals was, we want to have a place in Hawaii. We want to have a condo or a little, hut out there and just spend our retirement years in Hawaii. And they were planning for retirement at that point, probably in the early to mid 60s. And they could afford it. And they had talked about this since their honeymoon. One day when the kids are raised and we retire, we're going to go to Hawaii and we're going to get this place. And so they set a goal. They figured out how much money they needed to put as an initial investment, down payment. They figured out what their payments would be when they could pay it off early, by age 70. They had this whole big plan around it. And they left the meeting skipping down the hallway, cartwheels, holding hands, they're just happy as they could be. Well, the next morning I had this tearful phone call from the wife. She put her husband on and they were just so upset and so stressed out. And what happened? Yesterday you were on the top of the world knowing that you could achieve your goals and we just need to lay out the map for it. And she said, we realized after this meeting, neither of us wanted to ever have a place in Hawaii. We said that because the other one always talked about it. And we realized now that we have grandchildren, we don't want to be over there away from them all the time. So can we change our goal? And no, you can't change the goal. Of course you can. It's your goal. This is what this process is for. So what do you want? And what they decided is they would plan pretty much the same amount of money over the years, same amount of money they would allocate to take the family with them to Hawaii for shorter trips, but be together. And so they could, do timeshare. They could go stay in a really nice hotel for a couple of weeks at a time, take one grandchild, then come back and take another trip, and take the whole family over there and fund that, have a goal to fund that, and still get their Hawaii in, but not be separated from the grandkids. And it just worked out so good. So it's something about that experience, the clarity, the coming together, where the family now really realizes what is going to bring that highest quality of life and make their dreams come true, right? There's probably a song, burst into song about that. But that's what it's all about. And I get to do that on a daily basis with families all over the countryside. And it is awesome. I love what I do.
Awesome. And I appreciate you loving what you do, because it's hard to find folks that enjoy what they do, always smiling, because it isn't work, because you love it so much,
Yeah.
So, folks, as we get to the end of the show, you know what that means, right? It's our money truth challenge, and I can't wait to hear what you got for us this week.
Yeah, well, we're talking about back to school. We're talking about young adults, launching kids, helping them be prepared. Let's have a challenge around that preparation. So I'd say, if it's a threefold challenge, the first thing is to just sit down, with your cup of coffee, your cup of tea, and assess what you can do to help your child or your grandchildren prepare for their next season. And it might be financial. It might be maybe something kind of resonated with you when we talked about this history that follows you, the social media conversations, maybe getting that cleaned up if they're already a junior or senior in high school, and really, or college even, getting ready to go out and get their first job. Whatever it is, assess what you could do to help them prepare for whatever's next. If they're off to boot camp, help them get a trainer and get ready physically for that, mentally for that. So assess what you can do. The second thing is to gather whatever information you need, whatever resources would be helpful. If you can use our website, that's great. If the Money, Truth, and Life book is available anywhere on Kindle, or you can go on Amazon and get that hard copy if you want to. But gather information, resources. If you need to hire a CPA, if you need to talk to HR to see what benefits are available for you or a young adult child. What is it that you could do? Like, create this action list of things, short list of things that you could do to further that preparation for your young adult kids. And then the third thing is always, take action. Do something with that list. Do something with the information. Make the call. Get into your files. Whatever it is that you need to do, take action and challenge yourself to do it by 5:00 Sunday evening this week, right? By that time, and maybe you're one of these that at 4:55 you'll go get it done on Sunday afternoon. But for other people, it's like, okay, I have a goal. I'm going to get it done. I get an A. I did it ahead of time, right? Whatever it is. But sometimes just having a line in the sand, a due by date, really can be helpful. So I challenge you, if you don't normally do that, maybe it will help you achieve these goals and get these action items done. But there you go. You're going to assess what you need to do to help your kids, gather information and resources to get it done, and then take action. That's your challenge.
Excellent, folks. And as always, please share with us some of your comments. Let us know as well, too, how we can help you. If you have additional questions or you want additional challenges, we'd be more than happy to provide some as well, too. So we are at the tail end of our show. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. If you're not following Judy, please do so at Judy Copenbarger.com. Hello, tongue twister there. And all of our social media platforms are there as well. Last party words, Judy?
Make it a great week.
Awesome. Until next time, remember, we're here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. and replays are on Thursdays at 8 p.m. So you have an opportunity to catch both shows as well, too. Until next week, talk to you later, Judy.
All right. Have a great week, Carlos. Bye-bye.